Welcome to another Triathlon podcast, the podcast that brings the electrifying world of triathlons right into your headphones. Journey into captivating conversations, share the excitement of race recaps, enjoy the humor only a triathlete would understand, and join us as we debunk myths and bring you the bare, thrilling truths of the triathlon world. So feel your heart pound, breathe in anticipation, and get ready to dive into the world of triathlon. This is another Triathlon podcast. Enjoy the ride.
We are here with another Triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. And this week we might have a couple things to chat about. We've been waiting with eager anticipation, the WTCS and T100 series kicking off. And this weekend definitely had its highs and lows. But we're going to jump in first with catching up on how things are going with the crew here at another Triathlon podcast. Let's start with you, Fede. I know it's been a challenging time with having the broken foot in there, but what's going on with that right now?
Yeah, hey guys, happy to be back. And went to the doc to get a quick update on recovery and everything. And he gave me the green light to start easy pedaling on the bike. But that means I need to clip like a bike clip on the bottom of the boot because I still have to keep the foot like not moving. And if he said if there's any pain, just stop at all. But I'm a little bit nervous and excited. See how I feel. Probably going to be pushing 100 watts, but I'll take that. Anything that's an improvement, and that gets me closer to being back to normal again.
Well, it sounds like you had to get inventive to even clip into your bike with a boot on there. That had to be interesting.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes because I think it's going to be super tricky. I might have to leave the boot all clipped in overnight, and then we'll see. We'll see what happens, or change the bike
like a race day. You're going to leave your boots clipped in.
Yeah, perfect. Get a little transition practice. Make the most of it.
Rubber bands, everything.
Oh my goodness! After clipping into a boot, a shoe will be nothing.
Transitions after this.
Well,
exactly.
How are you doing, Josh?
Yeah, that's about me. What about you guys?
It's been another awesome week of training. It's getting closer. We're now 3.5 weeks from Oceanside, and I've got a half marathon this coming weekend. So this is kind of my first taper. I actually have a full day off today. I kind of don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, should I hydrate more? Should get caught up on a few things with my athletes and things. So it's been, it was a great week. I got a lot of build in, a lot of volume at efforts, and got 70 miles in on the trainer on Saturday with a good brick off of that. And yesterday, based off of my efforts in the week and the volume, I decided to just go to the pool because I had extra time yesterday and got an extra swim in. Got my fourth swim of the weekend, which is probably our first, and got about 8,000 yards in this week. And then my coach was like, you know what, let's get race prep ready. So we changed my long run to more of a 6x1K effort run last night. So still got 11 miles in, but 6 efforts at about 4 minutes plus, and really pushing it, getting my body used to running hard. And if the weather's right, we're going to try and go for a PR in the half marathon on Sunday down in Virginia Beach. So first off day, a little bit of a taper, get me ready for Oceanside as well.
Love to hear it. Sounds like it's going good.
Yeah, it's going really well, and
nice.
See if we can learn how to recover again and get those scores up the way they need to be. The body feels good, and I'm just excited to actually race and get that mentality going before I get out to Oceanside too. I think it's always nice to have that first race before your A competition too.
Yeah, just remember that suffering, get into that zone again is kind of the hardest part. I find the first race of the season is not a write-off, but it goes one of two ways. Either you're just not in that mentality, you haven't gone to that, I don't want to say suffering, but it's kind of suffering, just remembering how to go to that hard place and mentally stay engaged and strong and push through it. It definitely takes a little bit of practice. So having those races leading in are really good to get the head in the right space and get that feel for it again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we'll talk about that a lot going forward in this episode too, because we saw a lot of that down in Miami this weekend. And
oh yeah,
A races, first race, a lot of different opinions on how they were attacking the course in the day and where they were. So we'll get into that for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sure we will have lots
Yep.
to say on the T100.
How's it going up in Canada?
You know what? It's been a bit of an up and down weekend here. Had some fun with having some issues with my lactate testing. It was giving me some odd results, but got a new calibration fluid and everything seems to be working now. So it was actually really fun. Did a run workout and tested lactate a bit in there. And something that was very much a hard threshold effort just a couple of months ago was well below 2 millimoles and feeling good and feeling comfortable. So that was a really, really good sign to, you know how you feel, but sometimes it's nice to get the data to back it up to show that improvement. So that was really, really exciting to see that some of this faster work is actually making a difference and I'm getting better and faster and kind of dealing with that speed. And again, that discomfort, because it's been a long time since I've spent a lot of time at threshold and VO2. So starting to relax into the discomfort a little bit more, which is always a good thing.
It is nice to have that little extra confidence booster by the test scores too, right? Because we can all see like the cardiac drift and things like that. If those start to react and you can get an understanding of how you feel, but when you have an actual test sample to back it up too, it's like, all right, I got to go a little harder now or keep working where I'm going. And it definitely is a huge boost to your training going forward.
Absolutely. And once again, I have to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I always tell my athletes, sorry. I was just going to say that I always tell my athletes that one thing is just train and start to see the heart rate drop at a certain intensity. But another thing is that when you're starting to train and get fitter, then you can actually hold higher beats per minute for a longer time. So it's not necessarily a thing of the lower the heart rate, the better, but how long can you sustain a higher,
absolutely. And that's probably my biggest challenge is
output.
I don't know if you guys have heard much about the central governor theory, but basically your body's going to kind of stop you before the point you die. I guess we've talked a bit about it when it comes to the heat training and stuff. And after not doing intensity to that degree for so long and not having raced races where you're at a higher intensity, I find being able to maintain that for a long period of time I really struggle with just 'cause I haven't done it for so long. So it's been really fun to see my body adapting a little bit more to that, showing, through the training, showing your body that, okay, it's okay. If you go hard and breathe heavy, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. So you can do it for longer and maintain that effort and that discomfort. And just learning, like I said before, just how to relax into it, not fight it, because that definitely, you can make it a lot harder on yourself trying to fight it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that central governor theory, I think it's completely true. And, one of these guys that I've heard about it's David Goggins. He talks about the 80-20 rule. And that means that he says that, this is all subjective, by the way, but he says, when you feel like you've given it 100%, you're probably just giving it your 20%. There's like 80% left in the tank in you. So just suck it up, push hard, and enjoy the pain. And it's like, well, what you said, Jenna, just embrace it. Don't fight it. Know that it's going to be there. Discomfort is not a synonym for things going wrong. It's just that you're pushing yourself a bit too hard. And maybe that's good. Maybe that's what you need. Like on a sprint triathlon or the last 3 miles on a 70.3, that last hour on an Ironman never feels good, but you just gotta push and above that threshold of physical pain.
It's pretty cool.
It was a little bit of a reminder there, Fed. I could have picked David Goggins for our social media post of the week after he threw up there his Raynaud's disease with his fingers. Like usually it affects somebody 1 or 2 fingers. He's got it on all 10, and it's like all the way from fingertip to hand. And apparently he's
Jeez.
going to go get it cured, which there's no cure for. But apparently, when you're David Goggins, you can go find somewhere to get it fixed.
That's interesting. I'll have to go check it out. There we go. Yeah.
You can just run yourself to the cure.
Oh, man. But on the other side of the weekend, unfortunately, my son, my little guy there, got a stomach bug, so he wasn't feeling too good. So a bunch of weekend training got cut to kind of give him cuddles and make sure he was okay. That mom life, he's definitely a mama's boy, but you know what? There are sometimes more important things than training. So he's thankfully feeling a little bit better today. But yeah, it's always tough when the little ones are sick. Actually, I shouldn't say little ones. I just found out his feet are the same size as mine at 9, so he's not so little anymore. He tried on my shoes, my running shoes.
I'm at the phase now where my daughter's old enough, she's not working. So it's like Fridays and Sundays she's been working. So it's like, wow, now I actually have more time. And that was what ended up happening yesterday. I dropped her off at work and I was like, I'm going to go swim. And I don't even have it on my schedule, but I just feel like I want to go do a session. And I'm at a point where I got a little bit of travel, obviously, next week with the race in Virginia. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure I get in some pool time while I've got the ability to and the endurance to do it. And when you have a kid my age working, you might as well take advantage of fixing my schedule and going to get it done. Yeah. So that was my advantage this weekend. But when they get sick or something else goes wrong, they're the priority for sure.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah. It definitely changes through the different phases for sure. Well,
absolutely. Like talking to Laura, who's running around trying to figure out how to have an infant and a toddler now. And I mean,
oh my goodness.
There are completely different stages of everyone's training phase when you're even a professional.
Mm-hmm, definitely, which we will definitely chat a little bit more about her and her partner after talking about this weekend's races. But let's jump into some of these race recaps here. We've had the WTCS, but not really, and T100 this weekend.
Yes, exactly. We had the WTCS WTF.
Oh man.
Armageddon, yeah. So yeah, for our listeners, over the weekend we had two big races. First one being WTCS Abu Dhabi, which was the first race on the calendar for short course athletes and those guys chasing points towards Olympic qualification. And then the word on the street was that the race might get cancelled because something happened. Maybe this terrible weather was coming, or like a storm, or Ragnarok. Who God knew? I don't know. And then race morning came, and judging by the pictures and by checking the weather report, there was nothing major that could have stopped the athletes from racing. Apparently, the WTCS said there was a bit of rain and that the race course was flooded. But I have no idea. I mean, pictures looked awesome to me. It was 30 degrees Celsius. Like, God, yeah. I genuinely don't know what happened. I started to read some conspiracy theories that it might have been like an insurance fraud type of thing. But God knows. I don't know, but I'm just so gutted for the athletes that went over there and wanted to chase points and everything. And
some posts afterwards,
the race never happened.
Like the weather turned pretty extreme later that afternoon kind of thing. So it was, I guess, a case of they knew a big storm was potentially rolling in and it was going to mess up the next couple days of racing. So they kind of, I guess, made the safe call where the race probably could have happened, but later that day it looked pretty crazy over there with the wind and rain. And they definitely do not have the setup to accommodate all of that water. It looked like everything was kind of flooded and crazy over there. So it just sucks. All those athletes looking for Olympic points, like we're getting close. And that was, I know, a big race for a lot of athletes to get their team selections, a little bit earlier instead of having to chase points and wins right to the very bitter end.
And it sounds like, are they going to redo that like Abu Dhabi race too? Because it sounded like coming out of Miami, some of the U23s and some of the Olympic qualifying racers in Miami were talking about going to Abu Dhabi next too in some of their post-race interviews. So I don't know if it's like getting
Oh,
rescheduled, because that's a tough one to pull when that date was marked on so many people's calendars as the race that they were targeting for Paris, and then people like Christian getting points and whatever it is that they needed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And I'm with you too, Jenna. I definitely saw some crazy videos and pictures of the evening, at least, and whether or not they could have gotten the race in or not is definitely up for question. But it definitely looked like Kansas and Dorothy and Toto and some pretty scary pictures. But yeah, it's tough when it comes to weather and making calls and whatever else might have been behind it.
and I saw a great post story by Hayden Wild in there. He's like, "Hey, T100, can I get a last minute wild card? It's only a 14-hour flight." How good would that have been? That would have been a lot of fun. That's when you need a friend with a private jet so you could do it.
And I think it was when
That would have been
Katie
awesome.
Zaferis was racing in Miami and her husband was filming and photographing in Abu Dhabi. So it was like, she probably wished he had been in Miami after.
Yeah, definitely. Well, definitely throws things out of whack. We'll get some more info on what that looks like for the Olympic points and how athletes move forward, because that is definitely unfortunate as we get so close. But we did have a race that did happen this weekend. And once again, weather was absolutely a factor, but in a slightly different way than it would happen at the T100.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So we had the first race of the calendar on the T100. And this was a big race. Everybody was super excited. Of course, all of us were super excited about this race. We had the likes of Magnus Ditlev, Lucy Charles, Sam Long, Sam Laidlow, Holly Lawrence, Paula Findlay. And, over the men's side, we had a very interesting race. We saw a
Shocking.
very aggressive Alistair Brownlee from the get-go, on the swim, on the bike. Yeah, he looked to me like he was back on form to where he was, injury free, racing from the front. I think he even posted the day before the race that he was going to go all out, because people have told him that he should pace himself, but he does not races that way. So he was just going to go all out and see what happened. And little did we know, he was leading the race, and he later posted that the heat got the better of him, and he was just, I think, exhaustion for him, and he got passed by quite a few athletes. The winner, Magnus Ditlev, looked amazing. So we now know that his video of his super immense training sessions was not a fluke or wasn't a lie or anything. He's on form. He took the win. Sam Long was running through the field, probably had the fastest run split. And on third place, we had the French Mathis Margier running up the podium in third place. Of course, we had some DNFs and DNSs like Javi Gomez, who couldn't be at the race.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very exciting race on the men's side. What were you guys' thoughts about Sam
Yeah,
Laidlow?
it's funny. He seems to be either 1,000% on or off. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of in between. But my question is, if they had swapped the times of the men's race and the women's race, would Brownlee have won? I think that's the question I'm thinking.
It was a huge difference between the daytime and the nighttime results. I mean, that was probably the closest you'll see the women's results to the men's results in terms of split times and things like that. It was not your half hour to 45-minute differences. I mean, some of the run times and things like that were like pretty tight in terms of the men to the women. And I mean, as expected, Jason West ran crazy, but he had to because he had a really bad bike. And I mean, as we kind of expected, Sam was going to be chasing people down. And I feel like if we had a full half marathon, Sam wins that race potentially too. So it's, I mean, he was moving, but the difference in the temperature from night and daytime was astronomical. And then, apparently the bike riding for the women at night wasn't as bad as it looked on camera. They could see a little bit, unless you were Paula Findlay wearing a dark lens and getting tossed and trying to find it.
Yeah.
So just so many plots and subplots, and it definitely sounded like Magnus. Not only was he heat trained and ready to go, and some of his YouTube videos showed that he had been working on that in his basement, but he stopped at one of the aid stations and went back and grabbed those ice packs out of that cooler and kept stuffing him in his shoulder. And he's like, that was part of his plan that completely kept him going and cooled down his core just enough, whereas everyone else was like 6K, 10K in and done. So, and he certainly came from behind and just kept going at the same pace, and that strategy paid off.
Yeah.
Well, and it was so impressive. The funny part was Sam Long was 22 seconds from being lapped out of the race. He was so far back out of the swim. He had 22 seconds, or else he wouldn't have been. So with this race, because there were 22 laps and they were so short, if an athlete was lapped, they wouldn't be disqualified, where other races they will be disqualified. But what happens if you do get lapped? Then you have to drop back 50 meters instead of 20 meters, and you can't unlap yourself. So that means Sam would have had to stay behind that group the entire time. We saw him just charge through that bike and run course in there. But the race would have looked a lot differently, I think, if he had been 22 seconds slower through the swim and transition. Would have definitely made it a much harder job. That was so impressive. The way he looked running, like he's a big guy running down there in that heat, like he looked like he was sprinting.
He was in shape and ready to go, and we kind of heard that from Laura too this week in our interview with her, and she knew that he had an advantage on this course if he got to the bike. And it was like, it's almost like if you're a NASCAR fan, like if you've ever watched a pit stop and somebody's got to get back out before the lead lap car comes around, and that's what he did, and he got out in front of that bike before it came around, and then he just caught everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Except
for so good. And how good was that ride by Matthias Margier? Like, that was absolutely insane. He was crushing it. People are kind of wondering, is he legit or just had a one-off result kind of thing? And I think he definitely showed that he is legit and absolutely going to be a contender in this T100 series, which is cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a super strong cyclist, and I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with on the middle distance circuit and on the T100 circuit as well. Also, a quick note, Rico Morgan, the 70.3 champion, he was lapped out on the race, as well as Rudy Van Berg. And that just goes to show how intense just putting your head down and pushing crazy amounts of power mean in this type of racing and circuits that are oval and NASCAR. And he's a class athlete, and the fact that they were lapped out,
crazy. Yeah, and some big names
must have
getting
been
lapped out
pushing
too, and a lot
super
of
hard on
athletes
the bike.
got lapped out. Like, it was significant.
And we were talking in our Mana group chat that the race temps were like 110 on the track. I mean, such a huge difference. And it definitely seemed like there was a little bit more aid than what they were expecting when they got to the race briefing on our interview with Laura the other night. So it seemed like they had some support, but when it's 110 on a track with no shade, nah. Big difference, especially after you've been pushing 350, 400 watts on a bike.
Yeah. Oh man, that body temperature would be up after that.
100%. Yeah, and then of course we had this amazing racing on the men's side. Then the women did not disappoint. I mean, what a race by India Lee. Man, she was right there with Lucy on the bike, and then on the run, she didn't wait till the last lap. She was like, okay, I feel good. I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to push. I don't know if Lucy's back 100% from her injury, but India capitalized it amazingly, and what a performance by her. She is an incredibly strong athlete and an amazing person. Everybody was so happy for her when she crossed the line. Lucy hugged her and said, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
Lucy finished second, and then we had a Great Britain domination. It was India Lee, Lucy Charles Barkley, and Holly Lawrence. That was the top three. So, these Great Britain girls are definitely in for something, and they always are super strong, especially on an Olympic year. It does not matter if they race short course. I don't know what it is about an Olympic year that every Briton steps up their game, whether it is Ironman 70.3, short course. But yeah, it was an amazing performance. The downside is, like you were mentioning, guys, all of a sudden the live stream went dark and we had no clue what was happening. I was like, oh my God, the PTO, they didn't think about this. What's going on? I don't know if they left it, they completely forgot. They were lacking lights. It just
Yeah,
blows
that
my
was
mind.
crazy.
What were your guys'
Right.
thoughts
And
about
even you saw
this
like the lead moto in
racing in
there
the
didn't have
dark
his lights on
situation?
and it looked like it was pitch black. Some of those camera views, it looked like they were racing in like pitch black conditions, which, there's something with the cameras. It could look a lot more extreme for us than it does people actually riding there. But even, like I said, Paula Findlay ditched the um, darker visor just so that she could actually see the course. And especially having like raced on racetracks with motorcycles and stuff, it can be pretty disorientating going from that bright light to dark. Like your eyes take a second to adjust. So that would be a weird sensation. That'd be tough to kind of deal with and manage, especially as you're starting to fatigue. But even though it was later in the day, it was still pretty hot and humid, it sounds like. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, it definitely. It definitely was hot and humid, and we can talk about Emma Pallant Brown again.
Mm.
Unfortunately, not having fun in
Oh,
Miami, but thankfully she's doing all right. But the one thing that I found was interesting because we were all chatting and talking about and wondering what was going on with how dark was it, and
mhm.
it sounds like listening to a lot of the post race interviews, they loved the bike course. And it was like, it was one of those things that even with the heat and the humidity and everything going into it in the darkness, they loved the fact that it was almost a challenge for them to see if they could get a faster lap time every time by cutting the corners a little closer. And Jan was big on it because he was like, Lucy's giving up time every time she goes around this corner.
Yeah.
But it sounded like she challenged herself every time to cut the corners better. And it's almost like, did they ride the course like they were supposed to or said they were going to? And how much recon did they do? Because there was a lot of time lost early on in those laps when we could still see on camera how close they were cutting that. And it sounds like from her all the way through Daniela, and they all kind of enjoyed the bike ride and really enjoyed that aspect of the race and the strategy that went into it. So as much as we could see, I loved it. I mean, in the outside of the race, you could see great, but like you said, it's going from that dark to light. It's almost like when a pitcher's throwing a baseball in the majors and the batter's in the shadow, it's a little bit more difficult for the hitter to see and hit. So I can imagine on a bike, especially with the darker shield, like Paula had, and then she
Yep.
loses some of her arrow and all of that. And it seemed like she was pretty content with being in fourth place ish. And at one point, like we were talking about the Brits, it was six of them, 1 through 6 on
Yeah.
up front while Paula was tealing around. And I think she felt that this race was just get through it and manage. And it seemed like she was really content with coming in at fourth or fifth, wherever she ended up. It seemed like she could have made an effort to catch Holly, but decided it wasn't worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, it was so sad seeing Emma Pallant Brown
Yeah.
again, like
Definitely.
just issues. We had an ambulance on course. At one point, she's had some issues on this course before, dealing with the heat. And the funny thing with heat stroke and getting to that point is it's the opposite of what happens with the central governor. Once you get to that extreme, your body kind of has less of a buffer. Once you've hit that once, you're much more likely to have issues with heat in those kind of conditions. So unfortunately, it seems like that's kind of what's happened
Yep.
with her. Those
Yep.
conditions really don't favor her. And I'd be curious to see what she did kind of to mitigate that in the training. But it might just be a case for her body just shuts down without that heat exposure. And, it's still early in the year too. I know a lot of athletes aren't doing a ton of heat training, but I think a lot will be doing a lot more
Hmm.
heading into Singapore because they're going to be dealing with the hot and humid conditions once again there.
Yeah, definitely. like you said, Jenna, once you get a heat stroke, it's way easier for you to get another one. It's the opposite, like with a broken bone. If you break a bone, it's most likely that you will break any other bone but the one you just broke. But with heat stroke, it's a complete different thing. I remember athletes, having issues with that. That they seem to be getting one every race that's hot and humid. And it's unfortunate to see that Emma was struggling like that.
Yeah.
And also, a quick note on Kat Matthews. I don't know if you were, well, on the live stream, it looked like they were having a bit of a couples argument right there with Mark, her husband. And I was like, oh my God. I think even the guy in the live
Yeah.
stream said, I've had this conversation with my wife many times because Kat was waving her arms and Mark was like, come on, please understand. I don't know what happened with her, maybe cramps or a locked muscle. But yeah, she was gutted. And to me, it looked like she wanted to continue. And maybe Mark was like, don't play it smart. We have a lot of racing left. Don't injure yourself. I think that's what was going on during that conversation. But it was just funny to me to see the
Yeah,
the
it was one of those
husband-wife
things where it was
relationship
like
on the race
so like
course.
emotional to watch that in such a raw moment as she's, frustrated that her body's not responding. It seemed like her head and energy were still good, but something's just going on that physically those calves were just not working for her. And, it seems like Marcus, her spouse, just wanted her to be okay and saying, okay, come off, let's save it for another day. But she is so mentally strong and determined and gritty, and especially with her background in the army and everything, like she wanted to battle through. So it's just, oh, it's hard to see those moments. But I'm glad they showed that, like just showing the other side of racing in professional sport. I don't know how she feels about it because that would be hard to watch back or have people see, but it definitely just gutted for her. It was sad to see.
I think she's kind of used to Mark being in the public eye too. I mean, with his
Mm-hmm.
role in the sport. So I think she's kind of used to it. It was definitely unique and almost expected. I was like, where is Mark? When's he going to show up? Like, and it happened to come right around that aid station. But I don't know if you guys have seen this was, she tore her calf 400 meters into the run out of T2. So
Oh,
she
really? Is that
knew,
what happened?
she knew it was more than what it was, but she was trying to play it off. She was trying to not have it be another Kona moment, even though it was different. This was a physical injury, and Kona was just more of like nothing she could do about the stomach and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
this was, she's got a calf injury, and going forward, I think it's interesting that she tried to play through it, and that's more of that military background. Like, yeah, whatever, it's just a calf. I can run another
Suck it.
12K.
Embrace the suck.
So it wasn't something.
Yeah.
It's just a
So
gap. I
it's
have
interesting,
another one.
and that she did have that mentality. But the other people you asked earlier too, like the difference between the men and the women's race, only 13 women finished. And then I think it was like 13 or 14 women finished. And then there was the one DQ, which was also interesting, where the poor
Yeah.
girl comes out of the water and she's one of the last sub-ins and alternates that they brought in, wild cards. And there's the guy, ref, standing at her bike, just waiting for her to come out. And she's like,
Ugh.
screw this, I'm going. We'll deal with the protest later and figure out, because she's got to finish it in order to protest it. So
Mm-hmm.
kudos to her for knowing to keep going. And she actually did finish. She just
Right.
had a DQ.
Yeah, brutal to go through all that and have a DQ. But that brings up another interesting point. And actually, if you didn't watch it, she was disqualified for cutting the swim course. But an interesting point that I was thinking about while I was watching it for both the men's and the women's race is, of course, you have the PTO Tour athletes that are going to be at all of these events that are contracted for it. But you also have a bunch of last minute call-ups and wild cards and people who want to be a part of this PTO series because it's got good money. They want to get some points to potentially be in it next year. I was surprised how many wild cards and call-ups just did not finish the race. Like, you would think at that point, one, everyone's getting paid. If you finish the race, you get at least $2,500, which isn't nothing, right? But two, you'd kind of want to show like you can actually do the race and finish it, right? I think I'd be curious to see if they invite back any wild cards that just drop out and don't finish. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
That's a great point. I didn't thought about that, but you're totally right, Jenna. I think out of respect to the T100, if you get a wild card, you better finish that race because it sends a message
Yeah.
that if it's not going your way, you're going to quit. And I don't think any organization wants to be, related with an athlete like that, especially if you get a wild card. I understand if something physical happens or something mechanical, but if it's within your control to finish the race and you rather have a DNF than a, I don't know, 30th place, then you got to check your ego and, ask yourself why you're tied to your results. I think I wouldn't invite them again. If I knew that
I
they
can
just quit
imagine the
because they
list
weren't
for the
placing
next
well,
call up,
I would
right?
just
Like,
not invite them again.
yeah.
But that's just my take.
It's tough too because it is. I mean, some of these were what 3-4 day before the race. I
Yeah.
mean, so Annie
So
Haug
close
was
to being
late, and anyone that they added, we're all triathletes and we're all in shape and they're professionals and they're in shape. But were they Miami ready and mentally and all that there? So it's a difficult situation to be put into. But
Mhm.
mentality wise, it's like this is my opportunity. This is what I
Yeah,
wanted.
totally.
So if you weren't ready for that, I don't know if you get asked back. I mean, you better be ready. I think that was the message that comes out of it. You better be ready if you get called by the T100, even if it's 3 days before the race.
Yeah. Figure, even just show that you can finish. Because even like look at the women's race. If you finish dead last, you're still 13th among what's supposed to be 20 of the best athletes in the world. Like that's still significant and would get you some points and just, good credibility
Yep.
for the
Yep.
PTO. Now, obviously we did have a few people drop off. We saw a crash in there. Some people had a lot of cramping was a big thing, especially in that heat. But yeah, I think it's early season. And I think it went out a lot harder than a lot of people expected, especially on the men's race. They were pushing from the front. And it'll be interesting to see how everyone plays this because this isn't the race that you need to be peaked for. So there's a whole lot more racing ahead. So it's interesting to see if athletes are building into it
Yeah.
or just wanted to start off with a bang and they'll kind of divide the season up a little bit more to peak again later. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. I
absolutely.
think this is why Paula didn't chase Holly. I think she was being smart. And mentally as athletes,
Hmm.
you have so many bullets to spare during the race season. And maybe Paula was thinking, maybe if I go super deep, I can catch her. But I'd rather save this bullet for the final race or for a race when I could separate myself from all
Absolutely.
of the athletes because a fourth place is an amazing result on the first race of the season. Remember, this is a series of races, so I think she was playing it smart. Just get a top five, tick off the box, go back to Oregon healthy and ready to train again.
Hmm.
I
I
think
agree.
Paula is playing the
Yeah,
long
I
run
think
on
that's it.
this
I mean,
particular
for her,
series.
it was that mentality where this was just get week one done and checked off
Hmm.
and get a good result without doing some damage. And that's exactly what she did. It sounded like she had a heck of a weekend too, where she had to get new wheels flown in and new
Yeah.
shoes flown in. It wasn't an easy weekend for her, is what it sounds like. So kudos to her for, I mean, again, a lot of women struggled and still, again, she does this in every race. When she's
Oh,
having a bad race,
always
she's
right
still top
Yeah.
five.
there. Yeah.
And that's awesome for somebody who's been in it for so long. And people continue to like, and yeah, Paula Findlay's in this race too. I'm like, what do you mean, Paula Findlay? Show me when she is in top five, and
Yeah.
then I'll write her off. But it was just so fun to watch. I mean, to have it up on my big screen on my TV, and like I had people over in the house, and they're like asking questions and getting into it, and it was a really cool weekend. I hope it gets bigger and bigger. And I think this is definitely going to be some preparation for whoever raced in this one is going to be more ready for Singapore than some others that didn't too,
Yeah.
because it's not like Singapore is not going to be cool. It's going to be just as hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive into a little bit more on the PTO, but let's give our thoughts on the broadcast because obviously PTO is coming out saying that they're going to be the best, the biggest. We're going to showcase triathlon in the greatest way ever. So the general public will want to watch this and want to be a part of it. But I have to say, it feels like they took a step back on this broadcast. I will say, Jan Frodeno, incredible addition to the team. He was so good. You find athletes may know the sport really well, but can't speak to it very well, and commentating is a skill in its own. I think he did incredible. Rennie, she's awesome on these broadcasts. Jack Kelly's getting better in there, and it was nice to have kind of that outside perspective too with the more professional commentator. So I think the broadcast crew's good, but I think one thing they could do to make it a lot better is switch out the broadcasters. Do what the Tour de France does. Do what they did in sub 7, sub 8. Have them on like hour and a half, 2-hour blocks so that they can keep the energy up, have something to talk about. Because being on like that, even just broadcasting, like you start to get tired out, and you could see it kind of, they were slowing down. There was less enthusiasm through the end of the women's race. But if you give them times on and off to recharge, reset, and just get some different perspectives in there, I think that would really up the energy and kind of change it up a little bit more and just add some interest, because after a while they're saying the same things over and over again because the athletes are doing the same things, but they have that in the Tour de France and still manage to keep it interesting because you're bringing people in and out. So that was one of my main thoughts on the commentator side. What do you guys think of the new additions to the team?
I'm right there with you with Jan. I don't know how many times I said it during the day. I was like, it is so awesome to listen to him talk, and he and Rennie, the same thing. And I think Jack's doing a great job. So I think you're right. The team is great. I think one thing we learned that could have been a WTF moment is we all know Talbot's now training for a triathlon, but he hasn't learned his nutrition or his electrolyte intake because he bonked and had to take time. And all he was doing was being a cameraman and running around and doing social media lives and stuff. But sounds like he had a rough go. And but it's the same for these broadcasters too. That they're it's not like they were in a booth in air conditioning. I mean, they were outside. Jan's running around, Rennie's running around, doing interviews on the tarmac, and I mean, it's hot. So when you're talking 8 hours, 9, 10 hours throughout the whole day that they're using the same team of 4 or 5 people, it can get rough. But my takeaway is more on the actual film coverage of it, and how it definitely seemed to be leader heavy and top 1 or 2. And it's like, we all knew Sam Long was coming. You could see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, he wasn't even in the top 10 when that run started, and you knew he was coming. And then he gets in the top 10, and it took them to maybe 5K away before they got to him. And Jason West breaking into the top 10. It's like, we all know what these guys can do, and we don't know if Magnus is gonna not bunk. And like, so it seemed like the back of the pack runners didn't get the coverage that maybe they should have gotten in an opportunity where you've only got a 1.5 mile track
exactly,
to pan
right?
the camera.
This is the place. Yeah.
It's not hard to follow.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's not like you're, following them up to west.
Yeah, of all races, this is the one that
and
should have been
everything. It's
easy
just
to
snowball.
show the whole field. Even just stand still for a little while, and you'll see the whole race go by. Like,
where was the bigger blimp?
And hopefully they did away with
Exactly.
the Singapore race last year, if I remember right. I think it was this one where they had like
awesome.
different sectors, and they were showing how fast certain athletes went over different sectors at various times. They had a lot more timing updates, and it feels like all of that just went backwards.
Yep.
The information on screen was near non-existent. You're waiting for updates. You want to see where people are. There should be some way to at least get GPS tracker or something. Like it felt like we did not have any information of what was going on. Those conversations with Sam Long should have been happening so much sooner. With Jason West, like, we know they're coming through and running. Let's showcase that. Even like seeing who's doing the fastest lap every time, because there's so many laps like that. Do it like NASCAR. You're there at a NASCAR track. It would have been so much more fun to know what's going on, who's coming through, who's riding these fastest. What happened to all that? They were doing it. Now it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity to add so many things, like you said, Jenna. Fastest lap, keep an update on that. Who's moving the fastest? What needs to happen in order for this guy to win? Those things. Because, Rini and Jan and the whole broadcast team, they can only do what they're given to. and they did an amazing job. And kudos to Jan, Rini, and the whole team. They showed they were class athletes and they are class people because they never were, oh, when I was racing, no, they didn't made it about themselves. They were just giving their inputs, which I remember one in particular. uh, there was an athlete that was cramping, and Jan was like, cramps are not necessarily always due to hydration problems. Some of the cramps might be due to, muscular endurance type of thing. Maybe that athlete didn't do the work that he or she needed to do in order to sustain that intensity for that amount of time. And maybe that's why she's cramping. And, these nuggets of wisdom that you don't get from the regular Joe out there are amazing. And I think if they keep doing that, plus adding the things that they already had, they almost forgot. I don't know what happened there, but or
There we go.
maybe they should need to invite us to be part of their broadcast team, and then we can just
do some
that's
customer
the thing.
experience surveys after week one, and I think they'll hopefully change it. But you guys are right. I mean, the lap times. I mean, look at Daniela talked about it too. Like, she found herself on the bike, and like it was a struggle when she first got on the bike, and then all of a sudden she just started blasting it. And like, to see what those difference in times of her laps would have given us a different story. Like, here comes the Angry Bird. Like, she's pushing 20-second faster laps all of a sudden. And the same with Sam. Like, we didn't know where he was on the bike until it was almost time to run. And those gaps being changed, that's that story that they didn't hold on to. And in knowing the heat and the conditions that we were going to be running into, it doesn't matter where you were coming out of the swim or on the bike. And like, there was an opportunity for anyone to make money and make up room. And man, that story is the story I hope we get to see going forward. And it's not going to be a front pack race every time. And they're not going to be able to hold on. I mean, Sam Laidlow and Alistair looked like they were going to run away with it coming out of T2. And it didn't look like anyone was going to catch them. And credit to Martise, because he was like third the whole way. And he held on to it, whereas everyone else dropped. I mean, I think Sam finished 7th or 9th?
His way is stuck.
So, I mean, when that bonk happened, it happened. And you were wondering if it was going to happen to Alistair and if it was going to happen like it did in his epic race with his brother. But thankfully it didn't. And he was able to finish on his own and hold on to a top 10 performance.
Yeah, and I want to see all of those passes and lead changes. And that's the fun. Like, give us something to look at instead of the front person going round and round in a circle. Like, I want to see how they interact with each other as someone passes them. I don't care if it's like 10th to 9th. That 10th became 2nd. So it just, it'd be fun to see a lot more of that.
And they did catch some of that. I mean, they caught a lot of that Cat Matthews stuff, and they caught Paula Findlay passing her and asking, like, just kind of telling her. It seemed like Paula was like, "It's okay."
Moments. Yeah.
And then the India Lee finish line embraces, like, all of it. It was like, man, can we go back and watch this again and again and again? And it was just like how happy everyone was for her. And 35 years old to get a win like that at this point in her career, when, I mean, it was awesome to see. And that's the part of this sport that we've all like easily gravitated towards and loved, because that community is real and legit from the top to the bottom. And that came right through. And my social media post of the week, it'll talk a little bit about that as well too. So kudos to India Lee and that run. And she had the fastest bike time and the fastest run time. So amazing performance, an amazing career, and an awesome highlight week one. She's still got a whole season to go.
Lots more to look forward to at the T100. Like we mentioned, next stop is going to be Singapore. There's going to be a lot more heat and humidity, and we'll see how athletes have adjusted to that after their first interaction with it. Again, early season is definitely much more challenging to deal with that, but I'm sure we're going to see some fun racing and a few different names as we get some more of the top athletes into the next race. Hopefully a few less wild cards, and we actually see the top names battling it out for the whole time, because that makes it so much fun. But speaking of which, we're going to roll into the social media. Josh, what did you actually pull out as your social media post of the week?
The more I keep thinking about it, there's so many that all like encompass and embrace this story. But the one that really got me, and it's similar to India's finish line, was, I don't know if you guys saw the Heroes Welcome post that the T100 put up and collaborated with Sam on after the race. And he came back in after doing some interviews towards the track, and he literally stopped and took pictures with every three people, every two, and there was just all these people coming up to him, selfie, 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 taking pictures, and there must have been 100, 150 people that he just kept stopping, and like every 2 seconds, stopping and taking another photo with, and how awesome that whole experience was for those fans. A, to see the fans there doing that and embracing him, and then to follow that up. Do you guys see how he got to the track that day?
Yeah, I saw him riding over.
He's a pro. He rode his bike with his backpack on it. It's like, that's how I got to my first sprint triathlon. And here he is going to the biggest race of his life, riding with Jan Frodeno passing him in the cars.
Yeah.
Yo, yo, yo.
Oh, that was great.
He's just what an awesome character for the sport, and to back it up with his performance, and to have fans see that. So yeah, check out the T100 triathlon page. There's so much content up there, but you'll see one with Sam and the Heroes Welcome from yesterday or the day before. That's really, really cool to watch.
Oh, love it. That's good. They're honestly, that PTO page, they're crushing on the social media and the content side of it. It's really good to see, because there are some incredible moments in and around that race. But my what the F, we've kind of already talked about it here, but it just had to be those lighting conditions out on course. That sometimes we're looking at the broadcast and you can see the athlete names along the side, but it was just darkness. That's all you could see. Remind me of one of the tour races earlier last year where they did that team time trial in the dark and the rain and stuff, and you can see anything. But you think they would have tested some of that before?
Yes.
Have a better idea of it, but luckily it did not come into play during the race at all. It seems like it was a little bit more extreme from the viewer viewpoint, but again, hopefully next time we can see the whole race a little bit better.
But good kudos to Lucy Charles for doing her recon, or having the idea to, they definitely talked about clear visor, and she didn't have to douse hers and get rid of it. So, but I agree with you. I mean, we should be able to see this on camera, because you're all about the fan experience right now and trying to capture this crowd, and we got to be able to see the racers. And it's like, all I could think of was, you mentioned it earlier, it was like Jenna on a bike, like going through these corners with her knee on the ground.
Well, I mentioned it, like I've raced in conditions like that, and it is so disorienting going from like red under the lights to darkness. It just, a little faster speeds on the motorcycle, but it just kind of messes with your perspective a bit.
And for all those that don't know, we're probably going to get into some episodes where we all interview each other and give you a little bit more background about us. But yeah, Jenna was a pretty badass motorcycle race rider. So she's been on tracks like that, on especially the bike course, right? Because that inside technical area that we talked to Laura about definitely played in, but that's meant for bike racing, a lot of it, totally. and F1 and IndyCar racing. So very cool to see that, and how they handled it and tried to cut the corners, but also at the same time you could see where some of those slick areas were that the bikes could drop, and where Lionel dropped last year. And who was the guy that dropped this year? And he ended up finishing too, but it was right around an aid station. It sounds like he ran into like a volunteer and had some pretty nasty road rash, but thankfully that's all it was.
You know what, that brings me another thing. Shout out to that volunteer who was running with every single bottle to make sure the athletes could get it on the bike. That guy, I'd be curious to see if he had a watch on, because he was giving her to make it easier for the athletes to pick up bottles, and that is some serious dedication. That was cool to see.
And he's out there in the heat all day too. So yeah, I definitely said the same thing. But that brings me back to what you were talking about with just the timing, like laps and things like that. Also the leaderboard. It was like 0.4 of a mile or 0.4 of a kilometer left or something like that. I was like, no, Magnus is coming down the finishing chute right now. There's not 0.4 of a kilometer left. I was like, I thought Sam had a chance. And then as soon as he turns the corner, I was like, oh, wait, how are they off? Come on.
Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah. It just, it was good racing for sure. But, I put out a call for questions. We want to start to get back into some more athlete questions or listener questions. as we roll through here, because we got a few people who are kind of slightly obsessed with triathlon and all things training and racing and everything else. So may as well chat about it here too. So our first question let's see here, from Markham. How often to do a max heart rate test? And would you do it on the bike, run, swim, or all three? So I will say a max heart rate test, if you're talking true max heart rate test, I don't know if it's the most valuable test when it comes to triathlon and what we're doing here. There are definitely some different thoughts on testing and finding your heart rate zones. I would say kind of a threshold test is probably a good foundational way to start because, max heart rate is very, very difficult to achieve if you're not strong and fit and able to get to that max heart rate. So threshold will give you a little bit better idea, but then you can dial in even more with things like the lactate testing as well. Max heart rate, there are a bunch of calculators and things online, which I find are not really accurate for anyone in real life. So I would definitely suggest something like a threshold or lactate test over a max heart rate test. And for myself, for my athletes, typically I like to do them. If we're looking at threshold, it's a little different on the run, like maybe every 2 to 3 months on the run, because that heart rate isn't going to change drastically. It's more that the paces within that heart rate or within that change. So if you're training by pace, you have to do it more frequently. If you're training by heart rate zones, you don't need to do it as frequently. It's more just a benchmark to see if you're improving or not. When it comes to the bike, I say like 6 to 8 weeks to make sure those power zones are dialed in and you're actually training with the right zones. If you are doing heart rate training on the bike, same deal. You don't need to do it as often because it's less specific, but that's kind of a quick overview thoughts. What do you guys think about training? You're using your max heart rate as a test.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Jenna. I don't want to, mention the same things, but for triathlon, I don't think that knowing your max heart rate is going to be too beneficial. Like, it's going to be what can you do with those numbers. So I would say, first of all, get a fitness test, see if you're healthy enough to train, and then go from there, test your zones, your lactate levels. And another thing is to be specific with your goals. You don't want to know your max heart rate just because you want to know it. Why do you want to know it? Is it important towards your goals? Are you racing 70.3s, full Ironmans? Maybe knowing your zones is more important than knowing your max heart rate. Yes, knowing your zones means that you have an estimated max heart rate, but yeah, I would say just go to the lab, get a test, get your zones in, and that's going to be way more beneficial than just knowing a random number. Like, I know, yeah, my max heart rate is 190 something.
I agree with
what am I
all
going to
of
do
you,
with it?
and
I
I
have
just
no
want to
idea.
play the other side of it for somebody just starting out in the sport or somebody who doesn't have the means to go get tested or to go do it all the time. If you are going to try and figure out what your max heart rate is and you're healthy enough to do so, it would probably be best to do it in like a 5K race all out. And that your run heart rate is going to be higher. Your max heart rate on a run is probably going to be more viable than on the bike if you're trying to figure it out. But like the others have said, it really isn't how you want to train off of. It's nice to know. It's better than 220 minus your age and all of those things. So if that's how you're basing it off of 220 minus your age and you're constantly in zone 5 heart rate, well, you might want to do a 5K all out and see what your max heart rate truly is, because it's not 220 minus your age. So I absolutely get tested, go do the lactate, do the threshold, and get your power zones and your running zones done correctly. But if you do want to do the heart rate, it is more of a run-based effort that you would want to do to actually know what your top end is.
Mm-hmm. And with that, even just from a training methodology point, so that 5K run would still be like a threshold test, so much as a max heart rate.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you're looking at max heart rate, it's a very short test where you go to the absolute insane intensity. If you're hitting max heart rate in a 5K, you're probably dead. they can certainly get up there in some of those longer races.
You're not going to hit your max heart rate. I mean, we talked about the governor early and all, like you're not going to get to your max heart rate. So if you think you've hit 199 and okay, great. Well, your max heart rate's higher.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another question here from Chris. Should you do some hard rides right before a race? I'm guessing something like race week in there. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yes, you actually need to do full 70.3 before you do an Ironman on race week, in order for you to be able to perform well. No, I'm joking.
You got to know that you can
I'm joking. No, I'm all exactly. Yeah. Then you'll know. Just run a full marathon each week before you run your A marathon race, and then you'll know. No, this is a great question, and I'm just making fun of myself because I was that guy who was just validating himself on gigantic training sessions before a race, and that's not the way to do it. But I'm all up for activations. Let's say you have a 70.3 on the Saturday. On the Tuesday, I might do a couple 2 minuters, 3 minuters intervals, like 4 to 5, just to open up the legs and not getting too tired, having plenty of recovery within the reps. And like on the Friday before the race or Thursday, I might do like a few 30-second sprints just to have the legs smooth and sharp, ready to go. But yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I see age groupers make is on race week, they completely forget about intensity. They have everything easy, everything zone 1 or 2. And, when the race comes, it's a shock to the system because the body's like, what's happening? But I think activations is a great tool to be ready for racing.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a fine line.
The volume comes
down.
The intensity doesn't necessarily come down. And if you can match that correctly, and it might not work out great for your first race week, but you kind of tweak it going into the next race and see what works best for you. But getting up to your race pace and above and let your body and your muscles know that you're still about to go while it recovers is a huge piece of your success on race day. So that and hydrating and carb loading early on are things that you need to do. It's not the night before or the day before.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely need some harder rides in that race week. Keep the legs, the head, the body, everything fired up and ready to go. The worst thing you can do race week is just completely stop exercising and rest entirely, like you guys mentioned. From a metabolic and a fitness standpoint, just muscle activation, you will feel so sluggish on race day. I know we all talk about tapering, but tapering does not mean rest entirely. What it should look like, some shorter, hard efforts with lots of rest in between so that you're not causing a ton of muscle breakdown, but just make sure that you're fit and ready and fired up for race day and body and head are ready to go. But that's all we have for questions. That's all we have for races. Did you guys have anything else you want to chat about before we call it a day and look forward to more races? Excellent. Well,
I feel like we need another T100 this weekend.
We're good.
We gotta wait a month.
Right? Well, we'll count down to Oceanside and cheering on the pros, and of course, our very own Josh here. We've got the season is starting to kick off, and I cannot wait. We're going to have lots more to chat about and geek out on, and get some form checks on the Ironman athletes for this Ironman series. Looking forward to that.
I want to throw in there too, speaking of Oceanside and Mana and the whole team being there, is check out Triathlete magazine. There was just an awesome article in there about our custom suits from Mana, and I'm about to put mine on for Oceanside and really get dialed in. I'm sending out my helmet to Birdworks tomorrow, and that's going to be all nice and ready. Now that I've got my suit, I can match the helmet. So, but yeah, check out the review in Triathlete, and it's a really awesome inside information and third-party review, and it compares it to some of the other race suits that some of you are probably used to, especially on the custom side.
Absolutely. So much fun to design your own thing. And Birdworks, I've worked with them years ago, and now again, it's just so fun to get everything dialed in and matching. I'm gonna have to do the same. But thank you, as always, guys. Lots more fun stuff coming up, and we will be back next week to chat all things triathlon racing and a little bit of gossip and what the F. Have a good night, guys.
Sounds good. See ya.